brought to you by Bethel School of Technology. Learn more at betheltech.net/Ken Coleman. Okay, this is interesting. You remote workers, got some data here. It's going to make some of you upset, but this is not anti-remote work. This is a warning if you're in remote work. Okay, here's the headline. This is a CBS News article. Are you spending more money shopping online? Remote work, and this could be your hybrid job, could be the culprit. New data from MasterCard says, and boy, would MasterCard know. Talk about an expert on online shopping. If MasterCard's giving you data, you should probably snap your head and listen. Here's what they said, that remote work drove an additional $375 billion in online spending last year. Nicholas Bloom, who's a Stanford University professor of economics and one of the report's authors for MasterCard, said this to CBS Money Watch. A huge amount of spending came from the increase in people working from home. It's more convenient because I can easily order without anyone looking over my shoulder if your laptop screen is facing out and people see you buying clothes. That's a good point. So if you're in an open office environment and you're shopping and you're shopping online. Kelly, do you shop online for clothes?
Yes, it's not always successful, but we do what we can. Do
you spend more time online shopping for clothes or anything else, or do you still brick and mortar it? What's the breakdown?
Brick and mortar, very minimal, but I spend a lot of my time online shopping, especially if I'm being served ads, because then I just go down a whole rabbit hole.
See, there it is. She is Exhibit A, and she works here in the office. Imagine if Kelly worked at home all day long. She'd be broke because she'd just be in one giant rabbit hole of ads, and that's what's happening according to the data. So they actually track this. This is pretty fun. In U.S. zip codes where a large share of the population works at home, that's where the online spending levels were. So I think we've driven this point home. What's going on? Scott Baker, who's an associate professor of finance at Kellogg School of Management, who also worked on the report, said he's observed what he called a learning effect. People who previously never shopped online, by the way, that would be me, because I just, I'm late to the game on, listen, folks, I'm analog, all right? I think it was 8 years ago I stopped finally getting the USA Today delivered to my driveway. That was fun for me. Bob, you remember that when papers got delivered to the driveway? Alex, are you old enough to remember that? Sort of, kind of. I got to tell you, it was very exciting. I'd get a cup of coffee. I had my Restoration Hardware robe on. This is key, so everybody understands I'm properly attired. That robe goes down to about that high, about 3 inches above my ankles. So, summer, winter, that's my jam, Kelly. The Restoration Hardware chocolate robe, by the way. It's like a Snuggie, but it's not a Snuggie. It's that comfortable. I would walk out, cup of coffee in hand. Hello, neighbors, if they saw me in the robe. By the way, guys always looked at me a little weird. The ladies, they looked at me with jealousy. They're like, that's a nice robe. I could tell. That's a quality piece of garment he's got on. Nathan, I think you were at a Christmas party at my house once where I actually came out into the living room with the robe on over my clothes. Do I remember that correctly?
I think you did.
Because George was there, George Camel, my colleague, and George was really jealous. He wanted to see the robe. And I think I put it on George, and it covers George. It actually goes all the way. Like, you can't even see George, just his head. And then it's like a king's robe because it gathers at his feet because he's too short. But anyway, I would go out and grab the paper, and I was very, very excited about that. And I would read. So for me, everything's analog. So now all these people, they go home from the pandemic, and here's what the article says. Everybody goes home, and everything was online. And back then, in a lot of places, you couldn't even go to, everything was ordered online, your groceries, all this kind of stuff. In my neighborhood, our liquor store, we have a liquor store in our neighborhood, and they were doing delivery. They were doing online delivery for the alcohol and curbside service. You could go online, order it, and then they would put your liquor out in a brown bag on the curb. By the way, we live in a low crime neighborhood. No one complained of anyone stealing their package. It was like, okay, this is mine, this is yours, had your name on it with a Sharpie. Unbelievable. All right, here's why we're sharing this. In a hybrid world where a lot of people are going to be working on on working from home, even in a hybrid environment. What you've got to understand, there's a psychology there, and I think this is bigger than just online shopping. We're having fun with the online shopping. You're spending too much money. Here's what's going on. When you are isolated, even if you're with your family, when you're isolated and your work is remote and on a computer, you have to be very, very disciplined. There are people who can do it. And let's be honest, I'm not trying to offend anybody, there are people who cannot do it. And I think this is, again, more than just about online shopping. I think this is about exercise. What are you eating? When you're at the office, you're not walking by the refrigerator 17 times in a day. And I just think that, again, if you're going to be a remote worker, a hybrid worker where you have some time, I think you've got to have built-in disciplines and built-in accountabilities that make it not so starkly different than going into the office. It's too comfortable at home, and that's going to challenge you mentally, physically, emotionally. It's just going to challenge you. So you got to be careful. So interesting stuff. More data on that. And by the way, we're back to pre-pandemic levels on remote work anyway, so it's not like a lot of you have that option like you truly want. This is the Ken Coleman Show. Launch your tech career today at betheltech.net/Ken Coleman.